All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha StudebakerCarl. Whoop, had to disappear for a moment to grab my book. Today, we're going to continue our discussion of the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. We are in, well, it doesn't have chapters, it has like scenes. So we're at the top of page 12, which is the section that says, "To live is to suffer." But before we get going with that, I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves, and then Catherine's going to read for us, and then we can have our discussion. All right.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here on Saturday Morning Mastermind. And it's Jason from Tampa Bay, Florida. And glad to be here with Angel and Katherine and Samantha. And looking for a good discussion.
Hello, it's Angel Studebaker down in South Carolina. Happy to be here.
Good morning, it's Katherine Clement. All right, so to live is to suffer. 9 hours before she decided to die, Nora wandered around Bedford aimlessly. The town was a conveyor belt of despair. The Pebble Dash Sports Center, where her dead dad once watched her swim links of the pool, the Mexican restaurant where she'd taken Dad for fajitas, the hospital where her mom had her treatment. Dan had texted her yesterday. Okay, I'm read. Dan is Dad. I'm all messed up here. So Dan had texted her yesterday. Nora, I miss your voice. Can we talk? DX. She'd said she was stupidly hectic. Big LOL. Yet it was impossible to text anything else. Not because she didn't still feel for him, but because she did. And couldn't risk hurting him again. She'd ruined his life. My life is chaos, he told her, via drunk texts shortly after the would-be wedding she'd pulled out of 2 days before. The universe tended towards chaos and entropy. That was basic thermodynamics. Maybe it was basic existence, too. You lose your job, then more shit happens. The wind whispered through the trees. Began to rain. She headed towards the shelter of a new agent's with the deep and, as it happened, correct sense that things were about to get worse. Doors. 8 hours before she decided to die, Nora entered the news agent's. Sheltering from the rain, the woman behind the counter asked. Yes, Nora kept her head down, her despair growing like a weight she couldn't carry. A National Geographic was on display. As she stared now at the magazine cover, an image of a black hole, she realized that's what she was, a black hole, a dying star collapsing in on itself. Her dad used to subscribe. She remembered being enthralled by an article about Svalbard, the Norwegian archipelago in the Arctic Ocean. She'd never seen a place that looked so far away. She read about scientists doing research among glaciers and frozen fjords and puffins. Then, prompted by Mrs. Elm, she decided she wanted to be a glaciologist. She saw the scruffy, hunched form of her brother's friend and their own former bandmate, Ravi, by the music mags, engrossed in an article. She stood there for a fraction too long because when she walked away, she heard him say, Nora? Ravi, hi. I hear Joe was in Bedford the other day. A small nod. Yeah. Did you see him? I did, actually. A silence Nora felt as pain. He didn't tell me he was coming. It was just a flyby. Is he okay? Ravi paused. Nora had once liked him, and he'd been a loyal friend to her brother. But as with Joe, there was a barrier between them. They hadn't parted on the best of terms. He'd thrown his drumsticks on the floor of a rehearsal room and stropped out when Nora told him she was out of the band. I think he's depressed. Nora's mind grew heavier at the idea her brother might feel like she did. He's not himself, Ravi went on, anger in his voice. He's going to have to move out of his shoebox in Shepherd's Bush, what with him not being able to play lead guitar in a successful rock band. Mind you, I've got no money either. Pub gigs don't pay these days, even when you agree to clean the toilets. Ever cleaned pub toilets, Nora? I'm having a pretty shit time, too, if we're doing the Misery Olympics. Robbie Koff laughed. A hardness momentarily shadowed his face. The world's smallest violin is playing. She wasn't in the mood. Is this about the labyrinths? Still? It meant a lot to me and to your brother, to all of us. We had a deal with Universal. Right there. Album, singles, tour, promo. We could be Coldplay by now. You hate Coldplay. Not the point. We could be in Malibu. Instead, Bedford. And so, no, your brother's not ready to see you. I was having panic attacks. I'd have let everyone down in the end. I told the label to take you on without me. I agreed to write the songs. It wasn't my fault I was engaged. I was with Dan. It was kind of a deal breaker. Well, yeah, how did that work out? Robbie, that's not fair. Fair, great word. The woman behind the counter gawped with interest. Bands don't last. We'd have been a meteor shower over before we started. Meteor showers are fucking beautiful. Come on, you're still with Ella, aren't you? And I could be with Ella and in a successful band with money. We had that chance right there. He pointed to the palm of his hand. Our songs were fire. Nora hated herself for silently correcting the hour to my. I don't think your problem was stage fright or wedding fright. I think your problem was life fright. This hurt. The words took the air out of her. And I think your problem, she retaliated, voice trembling, is blaming others for your shitty life. He nodded as if slapped, put his magazine back. See you around, Nora. Tell Joe I said hi, she said as he walked out of the shop and into the rain. Please. She caught sight of the cover of Your Cat magazine, a ginger tabby. Her mind felt loud, like a Sturm und Drang symphony, as if the ghost of a German composer was trapped inside her mind, conjuring chaos and intensity. The woman behind the counter said something to her she missed. Sorry? Nora Seed? The woman, blonde, bob, bottle tan, was happy and casual and relaxed in a way Nora no longer knew how to be, leaning over the counter on her forearms as if Nora was a lemur at the zoo. Yep. I'm Carrie Ann. Remember you from school. The swimmer, super brain. Didn't what's-his-face, Mr. Blandford, do an assembly on you once? Said you were going to end up at the Olympics? Nora nodded. So did you? I gave it up, was more into music at the time. Then life happened. So what do you do now? I'm between things. Got anyone then? Bloke? Kids? Nora shook her head, wishing it would fall off, her own head, onto the floor, so she never had to have a conversation with a stranger ever again. Well, don't hang about it. Tick-tock, tick-tock. I'm 35. She wished Izzy was here. Izzy never put up with any of this kind of shit, and I'm not sure I want. Me and Jake were like rabbits, but we got there. Two little terrors, but worth it, you know. I just feel complete. I could show you some pictures. I get headaches with phones. Dan had wanted kids. Nora didn't know. She'd been petrified of motherhood, the fear of a deeper depression. She couldn't look after herself, let alone anyone else. Still in Bedford, then? Mm-hmm. Thought you'd be one who got away. I came back. My mom was ill. Oh, sorry to hear that. Hope she's okay now. I better go, but it's still raining. As Nora escaped the shop, she wished there were nothing but doors ahead of her, which she could walk through one by one, leaving everything behind. You want to talk? You want me to continue?
Yeah, I think we can talk about that. I mean, there's a fair
All right.
amount in there. I mean, yeah, that's some tough stuff to go through for her. Are kind of showing up in there, a lot of different dynamics to some of these conversations that she's having with Ravi and then with the lady there in the store, the other woman at the store, and I feel like a lot of this, I mean, each little section talking about the so many hours before she decided to die, and obviously she's struggling with depression and thoughts that she's unhappy with her life, and thoughts about herself, and feeling guilty about different things that she didn't do, and how we just start into these kind of downward self-talk, and obviously that's kind of what we're looking at, is all these different things that are coming up, and how she's feeling about it, and how other people are trying to make her feel about it, and like Ravi trying to give her a guilt trip because she didn't follow through with the band, and even though she was struggling and saying, I was having a panic attack, and then he's blaming his life on her, and then she's feeling guilty about it, and it's just I think that we all go through these different, not these particular situations, but where we regret not doing something earlier in our lives, and then we're still going through the struggle of not accomplishing a thing we thought we wanted to do, or not doing something, or whatever it is. And and that doesn't help when you have other people that are part of your life that are upset at you for not doing something as well. So it can be really tough.
Yeah, I agree. And you never know what somebody's going through. It's really easy to look at other people. And this goes for the person that's feeling down as well. A lot of people get depressed and feel down because they're comparing their life to what they think somebody else's life is. And I emphasize the think part because most people are walking around, there's public persona and the private persona and then the secret persona, right? So most of us only know the public persona of everybody. If you're lucky in this day and age, you get to know somebody's private persona, but you hardly ever, 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 even if you're married to somebody, get to know somebody's secret persona, because those are the things that we just aren't willing to even admit to anybody but ourselves, right? For fear of rejection or whatever. So I know I find myself doing that. I look at other people and I go like, wow, they've got their shit together, or, look how successful they are in this, or look how carefree they are, or look how well they handle all that stress. And I can't even, handle the coffee overflowing in the morning or something, whatever it is. Like, we make all these comparisons. And then because of that, we deem ourselves less than. And that's where that depression comes in. And it does build on itself. And then there's the people looking in at the depressed person, and they're thinking, well, what the heck is wrong with them? Why can't they get it together? When maybe they're actually facing some of the same issues, but people have different coping skills, right? Because of different upbringings and just different life experiences, different abilities to compartmentalize things. I had to compartmentalize a lot of things as a nurse, working with babies and stuff. So everybody's got their own little tiny violin, whether it's on what level it is, everybody's got one. But I do want to, this book, this is a fiction book, obviously. This is like the first fiction book that we've done. I never want to make light of the suicide topic, because we're losing a lot of people to suicide these days with the increased stresses in the world. And it's almost it speaks light of it here. And I just want to remind everybody, like, if you're seriously struggling, reach out to somebody, find anybody that you can talk to. And there's hotlines out there that you can use, because you don't have to keep going down that dark road. There's plenty of people out there that can reach a hand out to you and help pull you out of that.
Good morning, excuse me. Good morning, everybody. I was a little late getting on, but it is a really difficult thing to find that place in your heart or whatever of peace that can overcome all of this nonsense and craziness that might be going on in the world. Or I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's one of the petals that can unfold in the flower of your life, that the petal of peace, P-E-T-A-L, the petal of peace that you can find in your heart, to not compare yourself or judge yourself or let other people to do that to you. By all rights, I could be just as depressed or whatever, but somehow, somewhere, my upbringing and all of that has left me with the sense of knowing, peace, be still, and just to breathe and not take your breath for granted, because you can take a deep breath and kind of blow away the troubles that are whatever facing you at the time. I don't know, I'll come back later.
Yeah, I kind of wonder.
I see Jason's lips moving, but I don't hear him.
Oh, okay, Jason, jump out.
I see his lips moving. Oh gosh. Figure this thing out one day. Good to see you. Good to have you here, Lori. Thank you. Thank you for the great reading, Katherine. Appreciate it. And excellent points in what you all are saying. It can be very, it's easy to get stuck in our own world and sort of spend, and it's easy to spin downward when we don't reach out to someone. So yes, definitely reach out to someone, and if we can find peace in that stillness, fantastic, I think, as well. We talked a little bit of last week about purpose, and I think purpose in our life is kind of a moving target. Where it touches on this a little bit in this book here, in this scene, that how things have changed in their life, and circumstances have changed, and they're looking back on what their goals or dreams were, and that's kind of what I'm speaking about, is as a moving target. Our dreams, our goals, everything sort of is a moving target that we seem to have to adjust to, and we have to kind of be able to adjust in life towards that. And I think the better we can do that with in regards to our purpose, and maybe looking towards what is our highest ideal in the moment with our current circumstances. What can we maybe achieve, if we can't think down the road weeks, months, or years, maybe just tomorrow. What can we just achieve tomorrow, or within the next hour, to that can move us closer to a higher ideal, a higher, maybe a purpose, whatever we can sort of cling on to, sort of just to kind of give ourselves that, make things just a little bit better, and in the moment or in the future, because that's kind of the thing is, I was talking about being a collapsing star, they're talking about fairness and blame and all kinds of metaphors she's using about being able to just walk through doors and leave things behind, and it's sort of hard to pull all that together, but it is at least for a lot of great discussion here. So appreciate your time.
It can definitely, oh, sorry.
That's okay, Lori, go ahead.
It can definitely be hard to pull all that together to find a purpose or choose a purpose. I guess choice is the thing. So many circumstances affect those choices, and your abilities and aptitudes and attitude all can make a difference there, and it is hard to choose at times. I would say all the time, maybe. I don't know. Go, Samantha.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting on here, this part where he kind of accuses her of having life fright. And I thought that was just like an interesting way of describing that, kind of the fears that we have in our lives. And I think we kind of touched last week on that a little bit, or I was talking about it with somebody, of just being focused so much on all the things that might go wrong, rather than, having the hope of things going right. And it's interesting to me, because she talks about that. She talks about, how she was having these, basically anxiety attacks, for the band, when they were almost ready to sign the deal, and then she pulls out the last second because of her anxiety attacks. And I feel like more often than not, when we get into an anxious state like that, it's because we have all these fears and worries about what might happen in any given moment. And I have that. Not all the time, but I do get into these kind of spiraling thoughts where all of these like negative scenarios are just popping into my head left and right and continuous. And I have times sometimes where I'll wake up in the middle of the night. It'll be 2 o'clock in the morning, and I wake up and I'm just in the spiraling thoughts of potential things falling apart or going wrong, or people dying or whatever it is. And I'm like, why is it that we as a culture, and I don't know if that's just the American culture, I don't know if it's worldwide, I have no idea, but I think this author is an English author, and so I'm guessing that it's probably similar in the UK, that we have this kind of thing in our culture of the spiraling negative thoughts. And why is it we're focused so much on all the crap that could go wrong versus we could just as easily be thinking about everything that could go right and be excited about it. But why is it that, don't you dare restart computer, not now. Why is it that we're so focused on all the potential bad that would maybe happen instead of being excited about what good could be happen? And why is it that, like, in the media, they focus so much on this negativity? Why are we so focused on that? Why does that get the ratings versus the positive? I just don't get it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't understand why either, but I mean, all you have to do is watch one episode of the news and you'll see that it's the bad stuff that gets all the, that's what everybody goes to watch. Or like car races, if you watch NASCAR or something, most people are not watching because they want to see their race driver win. They're watching it for the big crashes and stuff. Like, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. We're pretty insane as humans, but I would have to say, at least I think that that's just a natural, animalistic survival mechanism. Because if you were just willy-nilly walking through the woods with the T-Rex, and you weren't watching what you were doing and thinking about possibly what trouble you could get into, you got ate for breakfast. So I think it's just simply survival. What do you think, Jason?
Well, it reminded me of the old saying about rubbernecking, where people rubbernecking when they're driving down the road and they see a car accident and they're bending their neck all out of shape trying to see what had happened. And when it can't be good, or it could be really, really bad, and it might be something you wish you hadn't seen. As far as our animal instinct, yeah, it probably does have something to do with that. Yeah. But that is such a great point, though, Samantha, because that's really where I think the quick fix is in focus and controlling our thoughts and focusing on all the good things that can happen. It makes sense to me, like how we go through life. Earlier in our lives, we're much more optimistic. We haven't maybe experienced a lot of bad events or anything like that, so we're not thinking about that as much. And then as we're getting older, we're starting to maybe believe in things like Murphy's Law, where anything that could go wrong will go wrong, kind of at the worst time possible, or something like that. And you start to get that pessimistic idea, but we really do have to fight that. And because our focus is so important in getting us where we want to be, and we need to have that focus. We need to have the aim. We need to aim in the direction of our goals. And if we are distracted, then we might, if we were out in the wilderness, like you were saying, Katherine, and we were distracted by something, we might get eaten by that bear or something. That was and it's but we have to take those risks in life to even enjoy. Have to take the risks of being hurt in life in order to enjoy the successes that we hope for, and that fright of life that is being mentioned in the book. I think a lot of people, in fact, I'm reading that just about everybody does have that, and it's just that no one talks about it, so everyone feels alone in that feeling. What do you all think?
Are you talking about nobody talks about which feeling, like the just feeling alone?
Feeling that fright of life, feeling frightened about, especially when they're engaged in trying to accomplish something that's important to them, and that's when all the negative possibilities come in to play, or start to haunt them in their at night when they're asleep or whatever, and they start, just that idea of maybe not being confident in that things will turn out the way that you'd like them to. That whole idea, but it can be a lot more pressure than just that, and I think really everybody feels that. I'm listening to some of the most successful people that the world has ever known, and they're talking about having confidence issues and being afraid and all that, and then just kind of trying to how they pushed past it, or how they dealt with it. We don't hear that. We don't talk about that ourselves. It's kind of like that. What were you saying, Katherine? The hidden personality, or forget the exact words you used, but it's a part of ourselves that no one really likes to openly discuss. Yet it seems to if we're not focused on the actions that we need to take and the positivity that we need in our life, then it seems to be what kind of dominates our thoughts.
Yeah, I kind of had a thought when you were talking about just this concept that we have of, we all have these thoughts, and yet when we look at other people, we think they're not having that experience, and then you're talking about some of the most successful people having these feelings and anxieties and whatnot, and it just kind of made me think about how, like, in whenever we're trying to accomplish something and we look at somebody who's already accomplished what we accomplished, and we just have this, or at least I have this kind of weird thing in my mind where I feel like, okay, they didn't go through the struggles that I'm going through to get to where they are. They just somehow are just, it was easy for them or something, and I feel like we tend to have that thought about other people, like, for instance, I mean, it would just, like, if we look at that conversation in the book where Nora is talking to the other woman who, she was like talking about her potential Olympic career and all of that, and how, I don't know, I feel like she kind of had this idea in her head that Nora just did it. It was just magic for her or something, and then in reality, Nora was having all of these struggles within herself about the whole thing, and I feel like we just have that weird tendency to assume that everybody else has it easy and we're the only ones that struggle. And that's just, I mean, obviously not true. I do feel like, though, that like the social media is we don't really, I don't know if we look at it this way or not, but I kind of feel like this is like, who can put on the biggest smile on their face even though shit's hitting the fan in their life. It's like, that's the competition online, really, is just to who can make their life look the best, even though I don't know. It's funny. I was watching this one, I don't even know what the name of the show was, some random TV show. And this girl, she was like in her mid-20s or whatever, and a super influencer with millions and millions of followers, and that they all looked up to her. And then she's feeling like her whole life is just meaningless, you know? And it's just so mind-boggling, really, that we can have that complete contrast in our culture where we're all struggling, but we're all putting a big smile on our face, like everything's just fine. And we say we don't want to talk, or I don't know. It's just this big contradiction, you know, because we have shows, we have, you know, TV shows and movies and all of that, where the person, the main character is going through this struggle, and, you know, and goes through the whole movie until they finally have their success or whatever it is. And yet we all seem to think that it just happens like magic, and that there isn't a struggle. It's like, how bonkers is that? I mean, everything telling us that it is a struggle and that we should feel like normal, and yet we all feel like we're less than. I mean, I don't know. It's
the maggots.
the brain maggots.
That's it. Maggots in the brain, just trying to survive like all the rest of us, and just chewing things up and spitting it out.
I don't know. Then I had another thought when Katherine was talking about, you know, back in the old days when we were being chased by dinosaurs or whatever, is that, you know, we didn't have any desire to go after, or we didn't automatically think about, you know, the negative possibilities necessarily. We just had them in our environment. They were beyond our control, and we just had to keep our eye out and watch our back or whatever. And then we transition into, you know, a later age of our development, and we don't have those types of things. So we literally like make shit up to have dangers in our lives, you know, just so we can have that fear, you know. And that makes me think, okay, well, you know, if this is like some kind of like underlying I don't know, developmental thing within our human makeup, that we need that fear in order to, I don't know. It was, we literally make the things up to be afraid of just so we have that fear. So it's like, is it just like a chemical thing that's happening in our brains that, you know, kind of like when we have a serotonin, you know, positive, and so we get this good feeling or whatever, but maybe, you know, that equivalent negative feeling is actually stronger chemical reaction that we're addicted to. And so that's why we're all into all this fear related kind of thing, you know, and that we can't help ourselves, you know, because we're like literally addicted to it. Is that what it is? You know, positive feelings just don't have as strong of a chemical reaction as negative feelings.
Fear is a great motivator because you don't want to be caught in whatever the fear is related to. I think, I don't know. And I really appreciate what you shared, Katherine, about the three different, the public, the private, and the secret aspects of our personalities that are developed because of whatever happens in our need to compare and contrast and compete. I don't know.
I think that there is a built-in mechanism for us to contrast things with basically the opposite of what we are either experiencing or haven't experienced. It's interesting because even today I see these I see these shows on TV about people going, being challenged to go out into the wilderness, and they live off the land for months at a time to try to win a prize, and they'll be out there and they'll be doing fine. They've got their hut built, and they've figured out a food source, and things are looking pretty good, and then they come across a danger, like a pack of wolves or something, or a bear or something, and they're like, oh, I see that big old bear out there in the field, and like I'm gonna follow it. And you're like watching, like, no, don't go follow the pack of wolves or the bear. You don't. Why are you? And inevitably they come up on this, they like end up sneaking up on this giant black bear, and they're like, and then they realize suddenly that fear that you're talking about, Lori, it's like, oh, and then they scare you away, and they're like, I'm never doing that again. It's like, but we sort of need that, it's like that contrast. And they say, even I think in the Bible it's mentioned, or someone was talking about the Bible and how it's mentioned that and asked, oh, it was in the discussion of why do bad things, God, why does God, the universe, allow bad things to happen to people? And one of the discussions was the feeling, allowing us to feel the sorrow is the only way we can understand compassion for others. So it's that there's this whole contrast thing throughout our lives. So maybe there's something to that is part of our the nature of how we learn, or what we need to learn during this lifetime.
Definitely the polarities. You can't know the light if you haven't been in the darkness. You can't know the compassion if you haven't been in the despair. I'm not sure why it has to be that way, but just accepting it is the hard thing.
Yeah, definitely. One of the key things here that I see, Nora, like you said, Samantha, she's down in her hole, and it gets hard to climb out of that hole, especially when other people start putting guilt on you and stuff. Although I have to say, and I'm like the queen of guilt, y'all, like I feel guilty over everything that's happening in the world is somehow my fault. I haven't figured that out yet, but like that's literally like I don't understand it, but I admit and recognize that is self abuse, really, when you think about it. I mean, that is self-imposed when you feel guilty about something. I mean, somebody can obviously try to make you feel guilty about something, but whether you actually feel guilty about it or not, that's a self thing. So, and I'm not sure exactly where that comes from, but you have to be, you really have to look at the source of your suffering sometimes. What was the title of this book? I mean, the title of this section was called, hold on, I'm going back. Oh, that was Doors. The first one, To Live is to Suffer. You need to look at the source of suffering, because most of the time, unless somebody's actively attacking you, the source of suffering is from ourselves, because we're comparing against somebody else. We're regretting a decision. Why did she carry on with the wedding that she didn't really carry on with, that ruined the band thing, and we we never know. I'm still under the delusion that, we pick these situations before we come into this life. So if we pick all this stuff, then we can't really blame other people for putting it on us. I guess we can blame ourselves, but again, that's just putting on more self-suffering, right? If we're blaming ourselves. So just always. The other thing, Samantha, that you said about waking up in the middle of the night, I do that too. I'll wake up at, 3 a.m. or 3:30 or whatever, and my heart's doing 300 miles an hour, and I'm worried about something that I have absolutely no control to fix, especially at 3 in the morning. Like there's no purpose in waking up at 3 in the morning to worry about that thing. And it's not like I went to bed worrying about it. I don't know why suddenly at 3 in the morning I'm worried about it. But I also recognize that we are interconnected. So I think sometimes it's not necessarily just us that brings thoughts and emotions into our experience. I think that can come from other people as well. So I never know. I just wake up and realize, oh God, I woke up to worry about this bill, but I'm going to lay here and sing this mantra for peace for the world until I fall back asleep or something. Like I try to redirect myself. But we all make choices that sometimes we wish we hadn't made. And when I look back, I don't know what I would have. I think I probably would have been dead if I hadn't had my kids. Having kids wasn't necessarily it was a choice for me, obviously. I got pregnant and I kept the pregnancy, but it's not like I planned to have my kids. I got pregnant very young, and so I just went from being a kid to being a mom. And I don't know, like I didn't have aspirations back then. I don't know what else I would have done, really. I never have regretted having my kids, of course. And but I find it hard to, like you were talking about earlier, Lori, it's hard to re-find your purpose or whatever. I find it hard to imagine a life without kids because I just always had kids. So I definitely don't have any regrets over the aspirations that I never had.
Oh boy, do I understand that.
Yeah. And the other thing I just want to bring up is, we're always talking about overcoming this and bettering this and growing in this way and doing this. And there is more to life than being an overachiever. I just have to say it. Like there just is more. And when you look at like these athletes, I look at these kids, their entire life is from the time they can walk, they're in this sport, and that's their life is centered around this sport, and their whole purpose is to get into the Olympics and win the gold medal. But when you interview those people that have won the gold medal, they're not necessarily happy in life, you guys. Like everybody thinks if you win the gold medal, you got it. You won the Cracker Jack prize, right? Like but it's not so. People accomplish all kinds of these things that most of us are striving every day to try to accomplish because we think it's going to make us happy or solve our problems. And yet there's people that have accomplished those things that are more miserable than we are now. And so you just have to acknowledge that. Pick a journey that you're having fun on, because at least you've accomplished having some fun. I don't know how else to say it. Like, at least enjoy the journey, because you may not enjoy the end product when you get it, is all I'm saying. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or anything. I'm just trying to say, like, more money brings more problems sometimes. Look at Trump. He's in a whole hell of a lot of shit, right? So I mean, not just because of his money, but like money doesn't solve every problem, is what I'm saying. Like we tend to think it, like I think it does. As broke as I am, I'm like, oh yeah, money's, give me some money, I'll solve all my problems, pay off all my debt, I quit waking up at 3 a.m. But is that really true? I don't know about that. That's what this book is about, actually, is what we stress and work ourselves into lives of drudgery and frustration, all because of these things that we think that aren't necessarily true.
Yeah, I was reminded of this when you were talking. I was reminded of some random movie that I was watching. It was an apocalypse movie, all the people are going about their lives, working on their careers and this and that and the other, and then the apocalypse happens, and then they're all looking at themselves going, geez, well, everything I did up until this moment has absolutely no meaning. And, for instance, like, I don't know, somebody who's working in some financial job or whatever, or, a model or an athlete or, whatever. And then all of a sudden they're not that anymore. That's not even a thing that's possible anymore. And, and they're just faced with survival or whatever. And it's just so odd, because we can get so caught up in something that we're trying to achieve, and we may never achieve it for one reason or another. We may, end up with we may fall and break our back and can't even do it. I mean, we could, maybe we're doing something to make someone else happy, and then that person passes away, and then you're like, huh, well, that was pointless. So I agree, Katherine. I think it's got to be about the journey. It's got to be about doing the thing in the now, because realistically, I mean, all we have is right now. And which is funny, because we will work ourselves up into like these anxiety things over what we think might happen in the future. And the future we don't even know for sure the future is going to exist for us, And so why is it that we work so hard on or not work, but we stir ourselves up so much about the potential future that may or may not even ever even exist for us. So it's I think we do need to make that mind shift into, right now is all we have, and so we need to focus on the right now. And yet at the same time, we are human in this, we do have this existence that we're living in, and so therefore we have a feeling that we need to focus on the future to some extent, because I guess if we just focused on the right here and the right now, I think that a lot of people would be like, I wouldn't go to my job, and if you don't go to your job, then you're not going to be able to pay your bills, and then what's going to happen, and so we think that through the whole spiral of all the things that are going to happen if we don't do the thing we don't really want to do. But yet at the same time, like you were saying, Katherine, where would you be if you didn't have your kids, and my family and my kids are kind of the purpose that I am always focused on the future. If I didn't have my family and the kids and it was just me, then it might be a different story. Then I might take more risks or be less active in some kind of a career or something, because I know that, in and of itself, just by myself, the worst thing that can happen is I end up without a roof over my head. Well, I can live in a car, or whatever, I can live in a tent for that matter. But when we have all these other people in our lives that depend on us for things, then it's a different equation, right? So, I mean, yeah.
Maybe that's why we have so many homeless people, because they're just tired of the rat race and the run around. And I heard the best thing this week with another one of my friends that's leading us on this journey, and that if you're animal of prey out in the world and just out in nature, and a tiger is coming and chasing you, and you get away, and as an animal, you don't think about all that just happened to you. You just, taking a deep breath and then you go on with your life like nothing happened. And as humans, we are just got to sit down and say, oh my gosh, I don't believe what just happened to me. And did you see that? And it's just interesting how you get in nature, and nature, you can survive a lot more than we think we can. I don't know. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lori. If we compare ourselves to nature, I mean, and I mean, we're like the supposedly top of the food chain, if you will, and yet we're the ones that create as much struggle for ourselves as we possibly can. And yet, I can look outside and the plants and the flowers and the birds and all of the, everything that's outside, they aren't worried about what might happen in the future. They aren't trying to, I mean, sure, they build themselves little nests and they build themselves a home. But if the tree limb falls off the tree that their branch was on, or their nest was on, it falls down, they don't have a house anymore, they just build a new one. I mean, and granted, we kind of do the same thing, if we have a disaster and our house is destroyed, we just build a new one. We work through it. But what's funny, I think, is that we stress ourselves out well before any of those things ever even happen, and they may or may not happen. And it's like we're trying to pre-plan for every possible outcome when obviously that's impossible. And yet, it's like my life in general. I mean, we have had our ups, we've had our downs, we've been on kind of a roller coaster ride financially throughout my whole adult life, and we've always recovered from it. And so why I feel like I have to stress out or have anxiety about what future might happen is beyond me, because I know I can survive it. I mean, unless I'm literally killed, So, and I don't worry about dying every day, but yet at the same time, I worry about all these things that I know I can survive. So how does that make sense? But, who knows?
We work so hard to prevent and prepare for all of the possibilities that are potential. Who knows? I wish I could figure it out, but if I did, then where would I be? I'd still be I don't know. Great talking to y'all this week, as usual.
Yeah. I think it matters a lot to where we begin with when we start to focus on what it is we want, our goals that we want. If we start by focusing on all the things that could go wrong, then we're probably not going to get off the starting block. I think when you start by focusing on the goal and how great the goal is, and why you want the goal and how you're going to get to the goal, and then you've got that whole aspect of what's going to pull you to the end result. And if you can just continue to focus on that and take action on those things, then you're going to put yourself in a better position. The result of that is going to be either a success, or you'll be in a better position to deal with any of the negative possibilities or events that might come up. But if you start with you start with a goal and you immediately jump to, but this might happen or that might happen, or what could keep you from doing it, then you probably won't ever even get started. And I think that tends to be with a lot of what a lot of people do. They talk themselves out of even going for the things that they want in life. But I think what you said earlier about reaching out to other people and talking to people, if you're feeling like you're in that downward spiral or you're stuck or whatever, go ahead and reach out and talk to someone, or look up some educational stuff about it, do some searches and find some real clinical or discussions or professional guidance on the subject. I think you'll find that there's a lot out there that will help you to make more sense out of it, and to make you feel like you're not as alone as you might think you are. And in a lot of ways, you'll be able to confirm the good things about what it is you want to be doing, and that you'll be able to learn to focus on, or refocus on what it is you want to accomplish. There's so much in this. It's interesting. This is this book. There's so much in every one of these scenes that we can pull from it. And one of the things that they're talking about is blame and responsibility, and understanding our personal responsibility, and also the aspect of how our personal blame can affect us, and really it's just a choice within us, and that we have all these fears, but a lot of people will say that the only true enemy we have is the enemy within. So it's really something to think about. Really enjoy these discussions. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right. And, we do have to consider how our actions affect other people. Like the guy was telling her, well, if you had stayed with the band, we'd have been Coldplay by now, and this and that. I mean, our actions do affect others. But we have to be careful about that blame game, because again, that's a lot of assuming there going on. Like, really, how many garage bands become Coldplay? I mean, in reality, the chances of them becoming a huge label was, even with her, was probably pretty slim, but it gives him an excuse to blame her for that. And then he probably never was in a band again. He probably has a whole story. It's like you said, Lori, they don't, we have to hash over our traumas over and over and over and over for some reason. And that's actually one of the reasons why I have kind of avoided reaching out to like a therapist. There's a lot of online therapy these days that became really big during COVID. And so, but I don't want to rehash traumas. I don't want to talk about traumas over and over. And yet we do in casual conversation a lot of times. But I think we have to recognize yes, we have to live in the present moment, but we also have to recognize that we are not just the present moment. We are that 5-year-old. We are that 7-year-old. We are that 12-year-old. And we can compartmentalize those characters and utilize them in good ways. Like, it's really good to pull your 5-year-old out sometimes and just play finger paint or some shit, like just be a 5-year-old for 10 minutes. Have fun. Don't think about the bills. Like, 5-year-olds have very little worries. What's next to eat? That's pretty much it. So, when we need to be a bit rebellious because we recognize we're not standing up for ourselves and we need to have a little more backbone, pull out that adolescent child and utilize those skills for good. we don't need to think of our younger selves as being only a hindrance or a trauma, is what I'm trying to get at. We can use those younger parts of ourselves and more carefree parts of ourselves to help de-escalate ourselves when we get so tightly wound as adults, as our adult selves. So it's just, humans are complicated. We're just complicated. And like you said, Samantha, we always think that somebody else doesn't understand what we're going through. And maybe they don't understand, like maybe they're not in the very exact circumstance, but they understand the feeling of despair. They understand the feeling of loneliness, of guilt, of blame, of shame. Those are the things that they understand. And if we will just quit telling ourselves how abnormal we are, because we're really all pretty normal. We pretty much all experience the same kind of stuff on different levels. But telling ourselves that we're abnormal or we're different or we're apart as those quote pack animals that we are, that's kind of that's a bad thing to do to ourselves, to separate ourselves. That threatens our survival. You know what I mean? When we separate ourselves like that. So we're all alike, you guys. So just love yourself a little more. Have half as much compassion for yourself as you have for your best friend, and you'll really have it licked. I hope you guys have a good week. Love y'all.
It's a good chat today, guys. Thanks for all of you for joining us. And for those of you who are watching us, if you'd like to join our conversation, we'd love to have you. Just search for Mindset Mastery Collective on Facebook. You'll find our Facebook group, and then, or you can just go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That'll take you to a page in our Facebook group that has our link to join this video or join our Zoom meeting. That's what we were doing this on. So we get together most Saturday mornings, and we'd love to have you. With that, guys, I'm going to wrap up for today. We will continue our discussion of the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, next week. And that's it for now. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye.